So Prince William, the heir to the throne of the British monarchy, has decided to wade in to the discussion surrounding the Israel-Hamas war. Now, I want to read to you what he said, because it is so disappointing and, in my mind, just shocking. But before I do, I just want to express the obvious fact that the British monarchy, and certainly an heir to the throne, first in line of succession, are not meant to in any way express politically partisan views. And by and large, they do not. Because the whole point of the monarch is to be a uniting figure and simply to fulfill the wishes of the democratically elected parliament and people. And they're not really meant to have a role in wading into partisan politics, unless it's obviously an issue that there's a great deal of consensus and unity around. So the fact that he's decided to speak now is, I think, deeply, deeply inappropriate. And I'm kind of scratching my head to think why he's done this. But I want to read to you what he said, and then just give you my initial response and then dissect it a little more. So Prince William put out a statement on social media saying, "I remain deeply concerned about the terrible cost of the conflict in the Middle East since the Hamas terrorist attack on the 7th of October. Since. Too many have been killed." He's saying since October 7th, too many has been killed. I wonder how he quantifies that. But anyway, let's carry on. "I, like so many others, want to see an end to the fighting as soon as possible. There is a desperate need for increased humanitarian support to Gaza. It's critical that aid gets in and hostages are released. Sometimes it's only when faced with the sheer scale of human suffering that the importance of permanent peace is brought home. Even in the darkest hour, we must not succumb to the counsel of despair. I continue to cling to the hope that a brighter future can be found, and I refuse to give up on that." Now, of course, let's just say from the start, everyone ultimately wants peace in the end. But what he's saying in this statement is he's saying that too many have been killed and that he wants to see an end to the fighting as soon as possible. Surely the objective should be that Hamas are obliterated, and once Hamas, the enemy, the threat, is removed, the terrorist threat, that's when the fighting stops. But he's saying the fighting has to stop and too many have been killed already. Well, actually, more need to be killed. More Hamas terrorists need to be killed. So it is deeply, deeply disturbing to me that he would express such a one-sided view and a partisan view. But on top of that, a deeply, I think, immoral position. It's, anyway, as I say, deeply inappropriate that he should be commenting and I think he's going to look back on this and deeply regret doing this, because he has been, as far as I've seen to date, very impartial, staying out of most, if not all, political issues where there's deep divides. And I'm quite shocked that he should say this. The fact that he's telling Israel, basically, he's literally entering into the political discussion and telling Israel too many have been killed and the fighting has to stop. Well, on what grounds? Israel are fighting modern-day Nazis. Modern-day Nazis, that's what Hamas are. And they have a duty, not just a right, a duty to go after them. And the nature of war is that when you fight terrorists and an enemy, especially when they're intentionally embedded among civilians, there's going to be civilian casualties. That's the case in every single war. It's just like what Britain did when they had to get rid of ISIS in alliance with America. And you know what? There's actually a slight difference between how Britain and America fought and how Israel are fighting. When Britain and America were bombing ISIS, the civilian to combatant ratio, the civilian to terrorist ratio, was actually higher, much higher than what Israel has achieved. As Lord Andrew Wolfson, the military historian, said just a few days ago, he said it's an astonishing level of precision that Israel's carried out, with a 2-to-1, one would even possibly go down to 1.5-to-1 ratio of civilian to Hamas terrorist, that ratio of those killed. It's unheard of in urban warfare. Unheard of, even by the UN's own statistics. And so he's saying that despite Israel fighting the most precise war ever seen in modern urban warfare, that Israel should stop. They should stop going after modern-day Nazis in a way that's in a level of precision that hasn't ever been seen in history of urban warfare. Israel should stop. What are you talking about? How could he possibly say this? And then you've also got to wonder, why is he commenting on this conflict when, as I say, the civilian to terrorist ratio has never been lower? And on top of that, there are still Hamas battalions that Israel need to go after. And if they don't go after them, we'll continue to do what they did on October 7th. So it's such a clear, morally clear case. But then on the other hand, he's speaking now, but he hasn't spoken about so many other conflicts in the region where starvation and civilian casualties and displacement are so much higher. I encourage you to watch a video I put out recently arguing that proving that Israel's war with Hamas is actually the least deadly conflict in the region, let alone the rest of the world. If you look at the Democratic Republic of Congo, there's 26 million people who are close to starvation due to war. We've got similar figures in Afghanistan. In Yemen, the number's 17 million. You can go on and on. The Sudan civil war, the Syrian civil war, 2 million Uyghur Muslims detained or oppressed in China. No statement there by Prince William. But when Israel's literally going after modern-day Nazis in a level of precision that hasn't been seen before in the history of urban warfare, and now Prince William wants to make a statement and tell them to stop going after the Nazis, it beggars belief, and it is deeply, deeply disappointing. I can only imagine that he's been perhaps maybe asked to do this or advised to do this. Maybe David Cameron, who has been beyond useless and naive is almost too kind a word to use in terms of what he's been saying at the moment, and the way he's making all kinds of moral equivocations with regard to Palestinian terrorism and the cause of statehood and all that. Maybe he's been advised by David Cameron. I wouldn't be surprised if that was what's going on there. But at the end of the day, people have to take responsibility for their own decisions. And this is a decision that he's made. He gave the go-ahead for this statement to go out. And it's just, it's appalling. And to be honest, it just, I guess I feel sorry for him that his moral compass is so skewed that he should think this. I mean, maybe he's just trying to go with the trend. Maybe he's caving to the mob. But that's not how leaders should act. That's not how any good moral person should act. They should think about doing what is right. The truth is that the Jewish people are in their ancestral homeland and they are fighting modern-day Nazis and have every right, beyond that, a duty to keep going until the job is done. Just like Britain and America, of course, did when they fought ISIS. You know, I have to wonder, Prince William is heir to the throne of Britain, the United Kingdom. He's talking and making statements about conflicts that are far away, that aren't directly relevant to him. Meanwhile, hopefully this will be an issue that should be considered impartial, but the rise in hate on Britain's streets that we've seen in the days, weeks and months following the October 7th massacre, from literally hours afterwards, where you had celebrations on the streets of Britain celebrating what Hamas did, the worst massacre. And it was not just a massacre, it wasn't just killing, it was rape, torture, mutilation, burning, hostage taking of a nation that was reborn after the worst genocide in human history. The fact that we're seeing hatred rising on our streets in Britain, and on that issue, which is directly relevant to him and should be considered an issue that's bipartisan, he has nothing to say there. Why? This statement is wrong. It's evil, actually, because it's telling the Jewish people, it's telling Israel to stop getting rid of the threat, of the genocidal threat that they're facing on their doorstep. How disappointing of Prince William. He's chosen not to do what's right, but to cave to the mob. You know what, at the end of the day, it says in the book of Genesis, at the start of the Jewish people's story, God comes to Abraham and he says, I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. In the end, it's not us that we're concerned about ultimately. We know that we'll survive and continue and come out of this. The question is, how do the rest of the world wish to act? That was the question I first posed in the aftermath of October 7th. The big moral question lies on the rest of the world. What are they going to choose to do? And that will really determine their moral fate and their destiny. And so if Prince William basically wants to give succor to Israel's enemies and the cause to try and harm, undermine, even eliminate Israel, I'm not saying that he directly wants to eliminate Israel, but in saying what he's saying, that's the inevitable conclusion. You're giving power to those who are trying to stop Israel from getting rid of Hamas. In the end, people that choose not to stand with Israel, they hurt themselves, their moral identity. So if Prince William chooses to hurt himself morally, then let him. But I hope all of you will remain strong in standing for truth, standing for light, and standing with Israel. And one more thing before I go, if you've made it to the end of this video, please, if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button underneath this YouTube video, because it really helps us to grow. It helps us to get more into the algorithm. It allows you to be more up to date with our video content. It really, really helps us. Please do share the content as well. I think we're close to hitting 100,000 subscribers. Please, everything you do, even the slight comments, the sharing of videos, all this stuff really helps us to spread the message and to share the light. I'm Ollie Annisfeld and you're watching JTV.